Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Institute of Global Professionals. Happy New Year, all of our beloved IGP members. We have successfully completed our 305 webinars. Today we have today we have an interesting topic. Today topic is art of questioning. Today we have a powerful speaker from Philippines. Let's without delay, we welcome our speaker, Sir Christian Sables. Hello, sir.
Hello, sir. Good
Hello,
evening,
sir.
and
Good
good evening,
evening.
everyone, to all the participants.
Happy New Year, sir. So, give a short description about yourself and then you can start your presentation. Sir, can you hear me?
Can I start now, sir?
Yes, sir. Sir, give a short
Okay.
description about yourself, then you can start your presentation.
Okay, so before I start with my introduction, so I would like to greet each one of you a happy, blessed, and bountiful new year. So I know that everybody is busy welcoming the new year today. And despite this busy schedule of our dear participants, you find time to attend on this webinar. Of course, so this is for our professional growth and development as educators. So I would like to introduce myself. So I am Mr. Christian Charles R. Centeno, Head Teacher 3 from Santa Monica National High School, Hagonoy, Bulacan. So I am one of the division speakers in English, one of the validators of the Continuous Improvement Projects or CIPs, evaluator of learning resources in the Division of Bulacan, and School Information Coordinator, or we also call it SIC. Okay, so that's all for my introduction. So I'm very happy that each one of you is now present and you are now ready to learn. Okay, so I would like also to recognize these people who are very supportive to all teachers or to all employees of the Department of Education in Region 3 and in the Schools Division of Bulacan. So first, I would like to say thank you to Dr. Nestor P. Nuesca, the Regional Education Program Supervisor in Mathematics. So thank you very much, sir, for giving me this opportunity to be the speaker in today's session. I would like also to recognize our dynamic Schools Division Superintendent, Dr. Zenia G. Mostoles, and of course, my hardworking Education Program Supervisor in English, Dr. J.R.V. Sangoyo, and also my ever supportive School Principal 3, Sir Roberto A. Cristobal, and I would like also to uh, give thanks or to recognize the Institute of Global Professionals for giving me this opportunity to share this topic with you. Okay, so thank you so much for that. So let me share my screen.
Yes, sir. You can share your screen.
Can I share my screen, sir?
Yes, sir. You can share your screen.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Okay. So before I begin with my discussion, so let me present this short activity with you. Okay, so let me ask our participants if you are familiar with portmanteau words. Okay, so will you please go to the comment section and please write your answer. So let me see. So I know that all of you are familiar with this. Okay, for a while. Okay. Okay, so let's have these words. So I really don't know if my slides are moving. Okay, so well, anyway, so let us just make use of this PowerPoint presentation. So my slides are not moving. Okay. So well, anyway, so portmanteau words. So what are portmanteau words, or what is a portmanteau word? So portmanteau word refers to a new word made from two words and their meaning. Okay. So for example, let's have this word, portmanteau word, chillax. Okay, so the word chillax comes from the words chill and relax. Okay, so when we put these words together, so we can form this new word, which we now call portmanteau word. Okay, so let me see if I can share this with you now. Okay, so let us have this word. For example, portmanteau word number one. So we have the word smoke and fog. So when we combine these words, so we can form the word smog. Okay. How about the next word? Okay, so when we combine the word emotions and icons, so we can form a portmanteau word, which is emoticons. Okay, so I know that everybody is familiar with the word emoticons. Okay. Next, let's have the portmanteau word number three, which is the combination of words news and broadcast. So when we combine the two, so we can have the word newscast. Okay, next, we have the fourth word, which is the combination of words internet and citizen. So we have the word netizen. Okay, so I know that many of us here, or most of our participants, are netizens. Okay, so again, netizen or netizens comes from the words internet and citizen or citizens. Okay, how about the next word, which is portmanteau word number 5? So we have the word internet. So internet comes from the combination of these two words, international and network. Okay, how about our sixth word? Okay, so cosplay. So we are very much familiar with cosplay, most especially our youths, the teenagers, those of passion for cosplay. So it is the combination of words costume and play. Okay, so we are very much familiar with this word. Okay, the word malware. Okay, so don't you know that the word malware comes from the words malicious and software? Okay, how about this 8th portmanteau word? Okay, so we have the word motorcade. So motorcade comes from the word motor and cavalcade rather. Okay, so we are familiar with the word motor. Okay, how about the word cavalcade? Okay, so when we say cavalcade, it is a procession of vehicles. So motorcade means procession of motors or procession of vehicles. Okay, so next is the word taxi cab. Okay, taxi cab comes from the words taximeter and cabriolet. Okay, so are you familiar with the word cabriolet? Okay, so what do we mean by a cabriolet? So a cabriolet is a light two-wheeled one-horse carriage. Okay, so that is what we mean by cabriolet. Okay, and the last word is we have the portmanteau word number 10, which is Pokemon. Okay, so I know that you are familiar with this. So Pokemon comes from the words pocket and monster. Okay, so that is an additional input for each one of you. And now we are all familiar with the words, with portmanteau words. Okay, so these are all examples of portmanteau. Okay, or portmanteau words. Okay, so now let us proceed to my discussion of the topic. Okay, so let us have this topic, which is all about art of questioning. Okay, so as educators, so it is very important that all of us know how to ask questions, most especially when we are teaching our learners. Okay, so why do we ask questions? How do we ask questions? And how do we formulate questions? So these are some things that we are going to discuss as we go through the discussion. Okay, so let us begin with the first slide, which is what is a question? Okay, so based on my source, which is Asking Effective Question by Olivier Serrat, so it is said there that a question is any statement, even nonverbal, that invites an answer. So a question is any statement that invites an answer. Of course, very basic, we all know that each question invites a particular answer. A question needs an answer. Also, The second definition states here that a question is only as good as the answer it evokes, and questions thus contribute to success or failure across different contexts. Okay, so I would like to emphasize here that question can contribute to the success or failure across different contexts. So let us remember that we are setting a particular objective or competency in a day or in every topic or session that we are conducting with our learners. So let us always make sure that all questions that we are asking are related or anchored by the objective or competency that we are teaching our learners. Because if we formulate questions which are not related to the topic or to the competency that we are teaching, that will be a big failure on the part of the teacher. But if we teach, we ask effective questions, and the students answer them correctly, effectively, and creatively, so I can say that we can have this success in teaching. Okay, so remember that. So the teacher, it depends on the teacher, the success or the failure of the lesson. Okay, so now we are already familiar with the definition of question or questions. So now let us move on the questioning. Okay, so what do we really mean by questioning? So it is said here that questioning is a vital tool of human thought and social interaction with which to open doors to data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Okay, so I would like to emphasize on these key points. It is a vital tool. Okay, so it is a vital tool for what? For social interaction. Why do we ask questions? Because we want to have social interaction. Same with classroom. Why do we ask questions? Because we want interaction with our learners. So when we ask questions, our students interact with us, and there the door opens and we can gather data, information, knowledge, or wisdom, because that will be the starting point of our interaction, wherein our learners will start to open up, they will start to share. Okay. Also, questioning is an art and science that lies in knowing what question to ask when. So questioning also is an art and a science. Okay, so why do we say, or when do we say that questioning is an art? When we creatively ask questions and students creatively respond to the question. Remember that our creativity in asking questions will produce a very good response or an excellent response from our students. Always remember that. So you should be very creative in asking questions. Why also a science? Questioning is science because we are formulating questions, or we systematically formulate and organize questions in order for us to bring out the best answer. Or same with science or in an experiment, we ask questions because we want to formulate our hypothesis, and later on we want to draw our conclusion. Same with formulating questions. We systematically formulate questions, we organize them, and then later on we are expecting for the right answer to be given by our learners. Okay, so now let me share with you these two important questions that we need to remember. So we have here the first type of question, which is convergent, direct, or closed question. Convergent, direct, closed question. Okay, so remember that if we are using this type of question, so the answers are very limited because our learners will only give a single word or a short answer. And then lower level of cognition because only factual information can be given and sometimes it is memorized or explicitly found in the text that they are reading. Doesn't necessarily develop a deep understanding because we are only focusing on the simple WH questions such as what, when, where, who. Then relied on to keep the lesson paced and keep attention of students and maintain control. Okay, why do we keep the attention of our students and why do we maintain control? Because they are focusing on what they are reading. Okay. And it is a test for understanding. So I have here a note that most time is spent on these types. Most especially when we are teaching average students. Okay. Okay, next is this what we call divergent or indirect or open question. So this is exactly the opposite of the first type of question, wherein divergent, direct, indirect rather, and open questions have higher levels of cognition or reasoning skills because they use their knowledge to solve, analyze, and evaluate problems or situation. So deep understanding is needed to answer, elicit longer answers, and asks for knowledge, opinions, or feelings. And we use the questions what, why, how. So remember that we do not only use what for factual information. We can also make use of this in an open question because it depends on the teacher on how he or she uses the what question. Also, we can have these follow-up questions such as tell me or describe. Okay. So remember that divergent, indirect, or open question develops more open conversation. Why? Because the students make use of their own insights, of their own opinions on a topic that we are teaching. Unlike with the first one, we are confined with the explicit details or information which can only be found in the text that they are reading. So this is also good for finding more details and finding others' opinions or issues. Okay? Next. So after knowing the types of questions, there are also levels of comprehension from a question. So we need to be very familiar with these levels, because when we formulate questions, we need to consider the levels of comprehensions. Okay, so let us have the first one, which is what we called the literal. Okay, the literal falls under the first type of question, which is the direct or closed question, wherein all answers are directly or explicitly stated in the material, whether written or spoken. Okay, the next one is this what we call the interpretive. So these are some questions that we need to consider in formulating questions under interpretive. Okay, so let's have the first one. Is the answer based upon details in the material but not directly stated? Which details in the material give you that idea? Is one question you need to ask to verify whether an inference or generalization was made. Okay, so this falls under interpretive. How about for the critical? So it's more on judgment of accuracy, integrity, and truthfulness of the statements found in the text. So this is a very good question that we can use for the critical level, most especially now that we are facing fake news, and fake news circulates around the different social media. Okay, so we must ask, or we must teach our students on how to check the validity, the accuracy, the integrity, and the truthfulness of statements that they encounter online. So these are questions that you can use in leading the students or in developing the critical level way of thinking of our learners. Is a judgment about the accuracy or truth of the material asked for, or is that statement true? And then let the students or the learners explain or expound their answers. And the last one is this what we call creative. So we are not only stopping or ending in the critical, but we also have this creative level. Okay, so these are some questions that will help us to formulate questions under creative. Does the question ask for something new? Okay, so it must create a new idea. What would you have done if you were in his or her place? Okay, what do you think had happened before this or after this? So this time, we are encouraging our students to express themselves, to put themselves on the shoe of the character. So they need to assume a particular role in the story that they are reading. Okay, remember that. So once they put themselves in the shoe of a particular character, there they will start to share ideas, their schema, their experiences, which is, I think, a very good way to let our students talk and express themselves. Because not all of them is given the opportunity to speak or to share something in class. So by this, so we can invite them to share with the class. Okay, so what is the purpose of questioning? So why do we ask questions? What is the purpose? Okay, so let us remember that it is an assessment technique. Questioning is an assessment technique that allows teachers to check for comprehension at various levels. Okay, it is an assessment technique depending on the level of comprehension that we are evaluating or assessing. So we need to be very particular with the kind of level that we are evaluating or assessing. So we ask questions because we need to assess something. So through questions, we can help learners to expand their knowledge and think creatively or outside the box. So that is our role as teachers, as their mentors. We need to bring out the best in them. How do we do that? By letting them go outside the box. How? By asking effective questions. Okay, still, these are other purposes of a question. Okay, to check for understanding, to help learners to learn or retain lessons learned. Yes, that's true, because when we ask questions, we help the learners to learn so many things. And we can also help them retain the lessons that they learn, because when you hit something in them using your question, when you bring out the best in them, they will never forget that lesson. So that's how effective questions are. Okay, again, to promote active participation. Okay, so because there are some instances that our students or learners do not want to participate because they find the lesson not interesting. How do we make the lesson interesting? By asking effective questions, by applying the art of questioning. Okay, also to promote higher level of thinking skills. Okay, so these thinking skills are the critical and this what we call creative thinking skill. Okay, so now let us discuss good questions. Okay, so when do we say that questions are good? Okay, so here, asking a good question will develop and foster interaction. So when you develop and foster interaction, so we can say that your questions are good. Also, it promotes student learning, achievement, and understanding. Okay, student learning. So that's all about learning. Achievement, when they achieve something. What are these achievements? If they are able to do something new, if they express something new, or if they construct something new. Okay, so that can be considered as the achievements of our learners. And of course, when they have these achievements, so they will have this lifelong understanding of the lesson. So according to Sanders in 1966, although this is very old, so I think this is still applicable in the present time. So good questions recognize the wide possibilities of thought which are built around various forms of thinking. Good questions are directed toward learning and evaluative thinking rather than determining what has been learned in a narrow sense. Evaluative thinking is the key word. So, when the students develop their evaluative thinking skill, there will always be retention in them. How do we teach them, or how do we help them develop this evaluative thinking? By asking good questions. Okay, always remember that, my dear participants. Okay, so good questions must be on the subject matter. Okay, not beyond or not outside the subject matter. It will always be on the subject matter. Do not ask questions which are not related in the subject matter or the topic. There must be one point, and that is your competency or competencies. All questions must fall under the competencies, or must be anchored rather by the competency or competencies that you are teaching them. Okay, it must be clear. Okay, use good grammar. Okay, why? Because there are students who are imitating the way you ask questions by just simply reading or listening to the kind of questions that you are giving them. They retain in their minds, and then later on they will make use of the same questions when they encounter a particular scenario or a situation wherein these questions are all applicable. So avoid questions that contain the answer, or never answer your own questions, because sometimes when students do not want to speak, we are the ones giving the answers. We are asking the questions, we are giving them the questions, and we are the ones answering the same questions. Okay, so my dear teachers, my dear participants, my dear educators, let us not do that. Let us encourage our students to speak or to interact with us using our questions. Okay, good questions. Okay, avoid questions with yes, no answer, because right after the yes and no answer, there will be no follow-up statements or responses. Ask questions that are open-minded. Limit questions that rely completely on memory. And use correct terminology and vocabulary. There, we must consider the level of understanding of our learners. Use terminologies and vocabulary words which are suitable or applicable to their level. Okay, so now let me share with you some questioning techniques. Okay, so but before that, let me share with you the advantages of these questioning techniques. Okay, so the first one is that it prompts active participation, which helps retention, or for clarification, or checking for understanding, or check for understanding. So a learner who does not understand a point will silently dwell on it. Okay, so that is the danger, because sometimes our learners do not understand a point that we are teaching. So they will just silently dwell on it. So, in effect, you have lost him for the balance of the lesson. So this is the reason why we keep on asking questions, or if we are asking them to make clarifications, because we want all of them to follow and we want all of them to learn. So you can gauge how effective your teaching is. If you ask carefully, you can determine if you are getting across. So let me repeat on that. If you ask carefully, you can determine if you are getting across. So that is the secret. Ask carefully to know if you are getting across. You can adjust to emphasize key points. Allows you to make sure you get across the information you want. So you give them key points as you ask questions, because these key points are hints for them to give the information that you want. Okay, so how do we pose a question? So the first thing is that we have to ask the group. Do not ask one student. Ask the entire group. Address your questions to the class. Because many learners feel apprehensive when they know the teacher is going to ask them a question. They feel relieved when they know the question is going to be posed to someone else. And that is true. Even us, we do not want to be asked. We are afraid of graded recitation. We feel the same feeling, right? Okay. So this is a typical reaction when posed to someone else, is to stop thinking about the answer. So if you are just posing or giving a particular question to a student, so they will stop thinking about the answer. What if you pose it to the group? All of them will think about the answer. So do not apply round robin questioning, because the students will be afraid to answer, and that adds tension on the part of the learners. And one of your objectives should be to get every learner thinking about the answer to the question. Yes, that is our main objective. That our learners will think, and will give the right answer to the questions that we are asking. Don't call on learner to respond to question prior to the question being asked. Okay, pose the question first before calling a learner or a student. Okay, pose the question first before calling a student, and avoid directing questions to a learner for disciplinary reasons. We are not using these questions to punish our students, but we are using these questions to help them learn and understand the lesson. Okay, ask W questions, or posing questions with words who, what, where, why, and when. Okay, so this is for informative answers only, but why can be used for an open question. So these are the keywords that will improve your questions and help you to secure facts, information, and a specific response. Okay, ask supposed questions. Okay, so we keep on using this. Suppose that you were the character. Suppose that you were the teacher. Suppose that you were um, the anti-hero. Okay, what would you do? So these questions help to amplify and reinforce a point. So they can be used to bring up a new or added point, and they are useful when you need to break a deadlock. Okay, why? Because when we are using supposed questions, so we are giving each learner the opportunity to share with the class. Okay, ask for depth. So asking the learner for examples, explanations, references, reasoning behind thinking will reinforce learners' learning. And follow up a learner response with tell me more or what makes you say that. And that's for depth. Okay, and we should also consider, okay, the preciseness of the question. So make sure question is understood. So you need to frame the question carefully. Okay, so here you are applying the art of questioning as a science. Okay, and there are several key factors in, or if there are several key factors in the question, it helps to write it out for learners to see as well as hear. Okay, so if we write the question and we read it, so we can expect that our learners will understand the question better. Unlike if they are just listening and the question contains several key factors, so it would be very hard for the learners to absorb or to understand the question. So it is advised that we write it out and we read it so that they can see and they can also hear as well. Okay, get agreements. One way is to offer several solutions in the form of question to the group. Another way is to confirm an answer by asking others in turn whether or not they agree. Okay, do not just ask one question to a particular student. Try asking others if they agree or if they do not agree with the statement that their classmate has just given. So you can see different opinions, different answers coming from different students. And always acknowledge the right answers and reinforce correct responses. Also, in short, let us always remember to praise our students whenever they are giving the right answer or correct responses. Why? Because that gives them more confidence, most especially when the teacher is telling them that your answer is right, you got it right. And we have several ways to praise our students when they are giving right answers or correct responses. Okay, remember this, avoid grilling. So ask learners in a positive manner. So it helps the learner to think, to reinforce, to improve attention and retention. So be helpful, be positive, even with a wrong answer or no answer at all. Suggest answer yourself, give hints, or prompt the learner. And avoid embarrassing learners by continued questioning. or switching to another learner. Because when we do that, they will never participate in our class discussion. And berating one learner also negatively affects other learners. So berating means scolding one learner. Okay, so let us not do that. So it has a negative effect on the part of our learners. Okay, so remember that good questioning technique encourages class participation, keeps class alert, and promotes retention. Again, let me reiterate that questioning can create a certain level of tension, but the right question can relieve tension as well. Okay? Let us also remember the silent time wherein we do not interrupt the learner right after the question has been asked. So we must give them time to answer. So that can be 10 to 15 seconds seem to be adequate, or that is also equivalent to 3 complete breaths. Okay. Because our students need processing time. But if we will let them answer the question right there and then, so that would give too much pressure on the part of our learners. Okay, let us also remember this Apple principle. Okay, so what is this Apple principle? Okay, we have the ask, pause, pick, listen, and evaluate. Again, so this is the simplified version of the first topic that I discussed. Okay, so as the group, first pose the question, then pause. This allows learners to think of the answer. Then pick. Call on a specific learner. Do not accept hands up. Or sometimes we accept hands up, most especially when the students are eager to answer. Avoid calling the same one or two learners who are anxious to answer. Then listen. For completeness of answer, do not jump in too early. Okay, so let your learner express himself or herself. Let him finish what he or she is saying. And then evaluate. Never say just say no or yes. Do not humiliate or embarrass the learner. Reinforce correct answers. Always tell the learner when he or she is incorrect. Then explain the correct answer. Okay, so there is also another version of this which is not included in my PowerPoint presentation. So this is the three P's and a B. Okay, we have the pose, pause, pounce, and bounce. First, we pose a question, then we pause for a moment to wait, then we pounce on a student to answer, and bounce to other students to respond onto another student, or bounce students to respond rather onto another student. Okay, so now let me share with you the probing questions. Okay, so what are the probing questions? Okay, so probing questions are set of some questions and hint in the form of questions that a teacher asks during teaching for seeking further information, and this may increase the thinking capability of learners so that they can think on multiple fronts. Also, they are designed to encourage deep thought about a specific topic. They are typically open-ended questions, meaning the answers are primarily subjective. Probing questions are intended to promote critical thinking as well as to get the person asked to explore their personal thoughts and feelings about a particular subject. So what are probing questions? Okay, so these are series of questions which require learners to go beyond the first response. Subsequent teacher questions are formed on the basis of students' response. So meaning to say, it depends on the answer of the students. We give follow-up questions depending on the answers or responses given by our students. So that's how we probe. So this skill is very helpful when learners go through deeply in order to have multiple answers. So that is our aim, to get multiple answers from our students. Okay, and sometimes this is used for involving all learners if they show a bit less interest in the teaching learning process. Okay, so when a teacher should use skill in probing questions. Okay, number one is when learners are unable to give the answers or give incomplete answers. Number two is for seeking further information. Number three is for gaining learners' attention in the teaching learning process. And if the teacher wants to give the knowledge of all aspects of the problem to learners, then the teacher asks similar question in a different way. And for improving the learner's thinking ability, and for that, teacher asks why and how type of questions. Okay, so what are the components of probing skills? Okay, so we have the prompting, seeking further information, refocusing, redirection, and critical awareness. Okay, so let me begin with prompting. Okay, prompting mostly involves verbal questions, visual questions through the model, gestures, and some physical guidance. So in order to help the learner to know the answer, the teacher gives some indications. Okay, so what is the suggested sequence? So we have the original question, then followed by an alternate question, then an open-ended question, and then alternative response. In giving alternate question, so we ask the same thing in a different way. Same question in a different way. Open-ended question, we ask for description or comparison, and for alternative response, we give options. Okay, so let us have this example. So this is related to mathematics. Okay, let's have here the teacher. John, what is the square root of 94? Then assuming or that the student's answer is, I don't know, ma'am. So the teacher gives another question. What is the square root of 100? Then John would say, 10, ma'am. Then the teacher will use another question. And the square root of 81. Then John would answer 9. So here, the student, or the teacher rather, will give or will let the student analyze and evaluate his answer by asking this question. What do we know about the square root of 94? So here, the student can give his answer. It's between 9 and 10. So this is how we do the prompting. Okay, how about for seeking further information? So most of the time, learners don't give the proper or accurate answer. So the teacher asks the same question to other learners in order to get correct answers. So the teacher asks different aspects of the question in order to seek further information. So this also may check learners' knowledge. So the purpose here is to give proper and accurate answer. So you need to ask questions, similar questions, until you get the correct answer that you want to hear. So you can use these questions. What exactly do you mean? Will you please rephrase your statement? Could you elaborate on that point? What did you mean by the term? So you can use any of these questions. Then we also have the refocusing. So we are using this if you are not satisfied with the answer of the learner. So what are you going to do? To put a different situation in front of the learners. Okay. So what are the possible questions that you can use in the refocusing? Okay, so here are some suggestions. If this is true, what are the implications for? How does John's answer relate to? Can you relate this to? Or let's analyze that answer. Okay, how about for redirection? So here, the teacher wants to get multiple answers to the question in order to make learners think again and again. So what is the advantage of this component? This will increase the thinking ability of the learner, and this may increase the participation of the learners in the class too. So your purpose is to get multiple answers to the question. So what are some questions that we can use here? So here we have a situation or a dialogue between a teacher and a student. Okay, so let us have here the teacher. What is the theme of Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea? So Sam's answer, it's about an old man's courage in catching a fish. The teacher wants more answers or multiple answers on this question. So the teacher would use these questions. Mary, do you agree? Or Mary, do you think it's that simple? Or Mary, can you elaborate on Sam's answer? Okay, so you can make use of this. If you want to get multiple answers from your students. And we also have this critical awareness. So if the teacher asks why and how type of question, then it is called critical awareness. So this increases critical awareness among learners, and finally, they will understand the nature of the question. Okay, so here we can have, what are you assuming? What are your reasons for thinking that it is so or that is so? Is that all there is to it? How many questions are we trying to answer here? How would an opponent of this point of view respond? Or you can use why questions. Why do you say so? For example. Okay, so let us remember that probing questions are good for gaining clarification to ensure that you have the whole story and that you understand it thoroughly, and drawing information out of the learners who are trying to avoid or are afraid to share something in class. Okay, and for my references, so I made use of the slideplayer.com and learningclassesonline.com. And that's all for my topic. And I hope that you all learn from my short discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your marvelous presentation. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
I hope our participant understand the presentation clearly. Dear participant, we are sorry to say that today we have no quiz competition. After a short video clips, we move to our question and answer programming.
Okay, sir. So let us now proceed to the question and answer. Thank you so much.
Dear participant, if you have any question, please give it in the comment box. We will share it in the screen. Questions. Question kasi dapat to Sir, we wait for a minute.
Okay, sir.
Participants are requested to get their question in comment box. Sir, our first question from Priya Akbar. I asked hundred of question in 2021 in all webinar I attend. However, I still have a question about the art of questioning. Is it sensible to invite the speakers or presenters to engage in a more creative or abstract question during such webinar, or should we focus on closed question only?
Okay, so I have seen this question. So, is it sensible to invite the speakers or the presenters to engage in a more creative or abstract question during such webinar, or should we focus on closed questions only? So, it depends on the host if they will allow the presenters to engage in this kind of questioning. So far, based on what I have seen in the previous videos or online webinars, so most of the rather presenters or speakers are given closed questions so that they can elaborate more on the topic that they are discussing or sharing with you as participants.
Thank you, sir.
Because we only have limited time, we have different limited time rather for the Q&A.
So our second question from Dr. Rajesh. What types of questions should be avoided?
Okay, so I think questions, asking questions uh, will still depend on the kind of topic that you are discussing, because each competency or each subject matter has a particular question to be given. So I think there is no the wrong question that we should avoid is that questions which are not related to what you are teaching, because there will be a danger that there will be misleading on the part of the learners. So let
Sir,
us
again,
always remember, like what I said earlier. So all questions that we pose should be based on the competency
এখানে
or
connected
subject matter that we are teaching.
Our second question from Firas Akbar. How to teach a student to ask good question in 3 easy steps? Please
Okay, in
refer
3
to
easy
your own
steps.
experience.
Okay, in my own experience, when I was still teaching, so I actually encourage my students to participate in class. I give them different sets of questions, and most of the time I'm using the probing technique, or most especially the prompting, so that I may be able to lead my students in getting the correct answer. So I think so we can make use of the Apple technique, or it not the 3 easy steps, but we can make use of the Apple principle as we give questions to our students, because basically our purpose is to help them understand the lesson that we are teaching them. So that's I think that's the best answer that I can give you, Sir Ferus. We can use the Apple technique or the Apple principle, or the 3 P's and a B: the pose, pause, pounce, and bounce.
Thank you, sir. It's a clear answer. So next question from Lamberto Pilatan. Sir Christian, how can a teacher develop his or her questioning skills?
Okay, so for you to develop this questioning
It
skill, of
also
course, you need to shall I say, you need to be very creative in asking questions. You must know how to make a question in a different way. For example, you have this question. So how are you going to make this question another question having the same content? Okay, so I think that is something that you need to develop, because language is very important. So you need to master the language in order for you to play with the questions. Okay, so just like what I said, a questioning is an art. So you need to apply your creativity in asking questions. Play with words.
Yes, sir. Questioning is art.
Thank you so much, Sir Lamberto.
So our next question from Evelyn Oeperi. Do you limit question to low-level questioning?
Okay, just like what I said earlier in my presentation, we must limit low level question or questioning, because we need to apply, or most of the time we need to make use of the indirect or open questions, because
You know?
if we will just focus on the low level type of questioning, we are only getting explicit information from the text. But if we will apply most of the time the open question or indirect question, so we can maximize the participation of our learners. So let us develop, or let us make it a habit to make use of the open or indirect questions.
Thank you, sir. See, it's a very important question from Firas Akbar. What does the question seem most challenging to you as a teacher?
Okay, so when does the question seem so when the students are not participating, so when they are afraid to answer or to express themselves. So the teacher, just like me, I need to encourage them to speak. And how am I going to encourage them? By proper prompting. Because if you apply prompting in teaching your subject area or learning area, so once they hear someone speaking, so they can have an idea. So you need to give them the idea in order for them to express themselves. Because if they will not hear anything coming from their classmates, they will not speak. They will be afraid to express themselves. So that is, I think, the most challenging part of giving questions to students, allowing them to speak, allowing them to participate in class, or allowing them to answer the questions that you are giving them. Thank you, sir, for that question.
Thank you, sir. Our next question from Evelyn also. What do you think are the functions why teacher asks question?
Okay, so based on my presentation, so it is an assessment tool. That is the main function of asking question. It is an assessment tool because you cannot assess the learning acquisition of the learners if you will not ask questions. So that is the purpose. And by that, you can also lead them to think critically and creatively. That's all, ma'am. Evelyn. Thank you.
Thank you. So next question from Leoncia Sumikar. What is the role of questioning in critical thinking?
Okay, what is the role of questioning in the critical thinking? We allow our students to think out of the box. Okay, it's just like what I said, they need to think creatively. When they think critically, they will think creatively, and they will have this out of the box ideas. So this is the reason why we are developing the critical thinking skills of our students, because we want them to be critical thinkers, not fallible ones. Yes, ma'am, Leonsha, thank you for that question.
It's not a question, sir, from Lamberto Pilaten. Thanks for the insightful answer, sir.
Thank you
Christian,
so much, Sir Lamberto, for your
congratulations to your
question.
amazing presentation. I hope we have no question. Thank you, sir, for your amazing presentation. I hope our participant understand your presentation clearly. Thank you, sir, for your valuable time with us. So,
Okay, so thank you so much, sir.
do you have any comment about our participant? So, do you have any comment for our participant?
Again, sir.
So, do you have any comment for our participant?
Okay, so again, my dear participants, so I am very thankful that I was able to share with you this topic, and I do believe when you go back to your respective stations, you are good formulators of questions that you can teach your students well by using the art of questioning. So thank you so much for staying with me, and I'm hoping that you learned a lot from my discussion. So thank you so much, IGP, for this opportunity, and may God bless us all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, from Institute of Global Professional. We hope we meet together in another session. Thank you, sir. पता नहीं हो जाता ना क्लियर ना होना. Dear participant, today our webinar name is Art of Questioning, and today's quote is IGP 3833. IGP 3833.